Call to order the August 23rd, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Bobby, call the roll, please.
Joan Kovac. Tundra King.
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz.
Here.
Derek Lewis.
Here.
Arlene Smith.
Here.
Carla Coleman.
Present.
Fred Stacer.
Here. Okay. With that, we'll have our traditional 30-second moment of silence. So if we would just be quiet for just a half a minute here. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of July 26th. Chair will entertain a motion.
Chair.
Yes, Mrs. Smith.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
We have a motion. I'm sorry, we had a second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any corrections, adjustments to the minutes? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll.
Darlene Smith.
Yes.
Derek Lewis.
Yes.
Tundra King.
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz.
Yes.
Carla Coleman.
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is individuals who will be testifying tonight need to be placed under oath. So at this time, if you would stand and be sworn in by the secretary, please.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is Pompano Golf Cart plat. Address is 140 and 160 Northwest 31st Avenue. It's P&Z 23-14504. Mrs. Barshevsky, you're up. Oh. We had a blackout, huh? Maybe I waited too long to start the meeting. Timeout? My wife says that all the time. I'm in timeout. Oops, coming up. All right.
Note to self, do this earlier. Good evening, Chair, board members. For the record, my name is Maggie Barshevsky. So we are looking at the Phoenix Golf Car plat. I want to make sure that's perfectly clear.
Yes.
There was a correction on the
Phoenix.
agenda. We've done that, and it's on the web as this. It's also in my staff report. It's correct. This is a proposed plat for a property approximately 1.68 acres in size. It is an undeveloped property located to the north of an existing Popeyes fast food restaurant at the corner of Atlantic Boulevard and 31st Avenue. The applicant is Elizabeth Sortesian of Police Land Surveying Incorporated, representing the owners of the property, which is BBA Property Holding LLC. The subject property consists of 2 vacant parcels. The property will be platted as one parcel labeled Tract A. The plat restricts the property to 9,660 square feet of commercial, and I want to correct the record, since the staff report stated a previous number that was submitted by the applicant. It is in fact 9,660 square feet as written in the plat itself. The project is accessed from Northwest 31st Avenue. A unity of use easement area allows a portion of the adjacent restaurant's parking lot to the south to encroach on this plat. A conceptual site plan has been provided along with this plat submittal, and it does match the one that was approved by this board in May. The subject property has a land use designation of commercial, and the zoning is B3, general business. The plat was reviewed at the Development Review Committee meeting held on April 5th, 2023, and found to be in compliance with the city's land development regulations. All comments from the DRC meeting have been addressed. The plat reflects the All-County Development Review Report recommendations and the review standards for a plat found in Article 5, Part 7 of the Code have been met. Therefore, staff recommends approval of this plat with two conditions that must be completed prior to the placement on the City Commission. Those conditions are, number one, the plat cover page must be signed and sealed by the surveyor and all owners. The applicant must submit a title opinion less than 6 months old and must be addressed to the city. And that concludes my comments for this evening, and
Okay.
the applicant is here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of staff? Applicant, would you like to come? Only because you're going to have to go on the record to say that your client will accept the two conditions. Okay. If you don't mind.
Yes, good evening, more board members. My name is Elizabeth Surukdisian. Maggie had a hard time saying that last name. I'm here on behalf of police land surveyors representing the owner. And for the record, I'm here only if there was questions from me.
Okay,
But
so
Maggie did a wonderful presentation.
You're fine with the two conditions?
Yeah,
of staff?
yeah, that's standard. Yep.
Mr. Chair, can we just get her address too for the record?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry. 5381 Nob Hill Road in Sunrise, Florida.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions of the applicant? Okay, seeing none, anybody in the audience want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any last-minute questions, and if not, the chair will entertain a motion on item number 1.
I have a motion.
Yes, Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
Move that the board find competent substantial evidence has been presented for the Phoenix Golf Car Plat, which is LN 425, that satisfies the review criteria, and move approval of the item subject to the two conditions requested by staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll, please, on item number 1.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Item number 2, Ocean Park, P&Z 23-12, 4 zeros, 1. I had to count them. So there's an air park obstruction permit at 1550 North Ocean Boulevard. Mr. Guevara, go ahead.
Good evening, Diego Guevara. This application is for the air park obstruction permit that accompanies the proposed mixed-use 19-story high building. This aerial photo shows the proposed building site in context with the area and the air park. For the purpose of this application, the height of the building is 242 feet above mean sea level or 234 feet above ground level.
Excuse me, Diego, just make sure into the microphone for the record.
Sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
Should I repeat it?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
A review by the FAA has determined that the structure will not be a hazard to air navigation, and they included 3 conditions in the report. Those conditions are included in the staff report. The application was reviewed by the city's air park consultant, Kimley Horn. Our Kimley Horn representative, Mr. Tom O'Donnell, is here this evening. If any technical question may arise, the application was also reviewed by the FDOT. The application was reviewed against the air park structure permit review standards of the zoning code, and details of how the project complies with those standards are included in the staff report in the backup material. The Development Services Department recommends approval of the air part obstruction subject to the following comments and conditions. First, construction must commence prior to the expiration date of August 16, 2024 of the FAA determination or any subsequent extension that may be granted. Second, if the construction cranes are anticipated that exceed the maximum allowable height stated in the FAA determination letter, this temporary structure shall be submitted to the Federal Aviation Administration and a determination of no hazard received. Third, as a condition to the FAA determination, the structure is to be marked lighted in accordance with the FAA Advisory Circular, Obstruction, Marking and Lighting, Red Lights, Chapters 4, 5, and 15. Provide an architectural roof plan identifying the general locations of the proposed obstruction lights. Fourth, any failure or malfunction that lasts more than 30 minutes and affects a top light or flashing obstruction light regardless of its position should be reported immediately. So notice to the airman can be issued. As soon as the normal operation is restored, notify again. FAA Form 7460-2, notice of actual construction alteration is required to be e-filed anytime the project is abandoned, at least 10 days prior to start construction or within 5 days after the construction reaches its greatest height. 6, the applicant is required to upload their drawings to be consistent with datum and elevation across all disciplines, and that no structure height, including but not limited to components, cladding, and ancillary structures, be permitted to exceed 242 feet MSLA, which is above mean sea level.
Okay. That's it, right? That's your report?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of staff and/or the consultant? Okay. Seeing none, is there an applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Mike Vondermeulen. I'm with Keith. Our address is 301 East Atlantic Boulevard, and I have been sworn.
Okay.
In reference to the conditions of staff, those are also the conditions of the FAA. We will comply with those. So there's no objection to any conditions. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of the applicant?
No, but, Mr. Chairman,
What-
is there
what are we
a
doing?
question going on with staff about some of the conditions here?
Okay.
Good evening. For the record, Tom O'Donnell with Kimley Horn & Associates. My place of business is 8201 Peters Road, Plantation, Florida, Suite 2200. There was one item that I noticed on the provisions that the second to last bullet should read "and," not "or," where it's talking about within 5 days. So it's the second sentence over to the right. It should say "and within 5 days." That's what the FAA determination states.
Okay. All right. So we'll make that correction. Okay. I'm assuming you don't have a problem with the "and."
No, I do not.
Okay. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion. Are there any last-minute questions or comments from the board? And if not, the chair will entertain a motion on item number whatever we're on.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mrs. Coleman, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion as follows. The board finds that competent and substantial evidence has been presented satisfying the review standards for the air park obstruction permit as requested in this application, and therefore I move approval of the item with the 6 conditions as amended outlined in the staff report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Bobby, call the roll on item number 2, please.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 3, post-decision action extension of the site plan approval. P&Z 21-12, 4014, address 2714 Northwest 4th Court. Mrs. Gretzer, good to see you. You're up.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Gratzer with Development Services. This item is for the extension of the time period before which the development order expires for the site plan at the corner of Northwest 4th Court and Northwest 27th Avenue. The project is for the construction of a new BSO substation within the Northwest neighborhood. The project is located north of Atlantic Boulevard, just between 31st Avenue and Powerline, within the Northwest 27th Avenue corridor. The property has a split zoning of B2, which is community business, and RS3, which is single-family residential. So just a quick overview of the project, as this has not previously come before the board. It is a minor site plan and therefore was reviewed by the DRC and approved by the Development Services Director. Given the limited scope of work, the project did not require to come before this board. However, the authority to grant the extension of the development orders does fall on the Planning and Zoning Board. The building that is proposed is going to be about 2,800 square feet and will be used for the police substation. The project was reviewed by the DRC in May and July of 2021. It was approved September 7th in 2021 and therefore expires September 7th of 2023. This project also obtained zoning board approval for a special exception because of the RS3 zoning district designation for the use of the police substation. They approved the zoning board of appeals approved the special exception in 2020, and that has since expired, so they will have to get a new special exception approval. The applicant is requesting this extension because they were unable to obtain an approved building permit in a timely manner due to various delays with the design and bidding phases of the project. The applicant has made reasonable efforts submitting the work on the permit, and therefore they may be considered under one of the criteria for the extension of the site plan for the development order. Under the code section that allows this extension, making a reasonable effort towards the building permit application does fall under one of the criteria, which is letter A. In order to get this approved, if you guys grant the extension, we do have 2 staff conditions. The first just being the original condition of the site plan development orders remain in effect. And number 2, that the applicant shall obtain an updated special exception from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the proposed police substation. That is everything I have for staff. We do have Tammy Good, who's the project, not project planner, project coordinator of the project for the engineering department.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Yes, go ahead. Mrs. Coleman.
What was the reason for the delay? Say it was delayed, but what was the reason for the delay? Why did it take so long?
Tammy Good, CIP Manager, Engineering Department. There were several different factors that caused delays. We had some issues with design. Then we had issues, just delays in getting it out to bid, executing the contract, just kind of several different factors that came into play that caused the delays. It's a slow process. A lot of stakeholders as a city project. We have to ensure that, and this is a very sensitive one, considering some of the issues that we've had in this area. So we want to make sure that the design meets all of the stakeholder needs. So we had to reach out to a lot of people, public outreach, internal staff, internal stakeholders to make sure that the design does meet everyone's needs. And we had gone back and forth. We not only have the city as an internal client, but we're working with Broward Sheriff's Office staff because this building will be used by them, even though the city's funding it and it's our building, our land. So there was a lot of coordinating and design efforts that had to take place, collaborating with BSO staff to ensure that the design meets their needs. But we also had to be cognizant of funding. So when you're spending someone else's money, it's easy to say, I want, and then I have to be the bad person to say, well, we only have so much money. So it was a tug of war, but in the end, we came up with a really good design that meets their needs. So that took a lot of time. Not to place the blame on anyone, but it's just a slow, arduous process so that at the end, everyone is satisfied, and that's what we want.
Are those issues resolved now and you're ready to go forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, anybody in the audience want to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing portion. And if there are no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion on item number 3.
Make a motion.
Please, Mrs. King, go ahead.
I make a motion, that the board finds competent substantial evidence that has been presented for L9119 that satisfies the review standards, and that the board recommends approval with the 2 conditions by staff.
Yes. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Chair, I'll second.
Okay. Just for the record, the 2 conditions of staff are fine, please, on the
We
record.
have no issues with those conditions,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on item number 3, please.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Good luck with the project. It's
Thank you.
important. It's important. Okay. Next item on our agenda is Blanche Ely Estate, item number 4, Blanche Ely Estates, P&Z 23-124016. It's at the 1600 block of Northwest 6th Avenue. Mrs. Lenz, you're up. Good to see you this evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Helena Lahans. I'm presenting Blanche Ely Estates. So sorry. Jesus. All right. This property is located at 1600 block Northwest 16th Ave, located on the west side of Northwest 6th Ave and north of Northwest 15th Street. Here is an aerial of the location of the property. It's located in the Blanche Ely plat on parcel A to the west, just abutting Sanders Park Elementary and on the west of Northwest 6th Ave. The property is currently zoned RD1 to family residence with the future land use designation of low. The site is currently vacant. The applicant's proposing a 36 single-family dwelling units on 11.46 acre vacant parcel in the Liberty Park neighborhood. The total lot coverage is 35% per lot. The site plan was reviewed by DRC on July 5th of 2023 and August 16 of 2023. The AAC application is pending submission at this time. The site will provide 144 parking spaces, 44 parking for the dwelling units, 4 parking spaces per dwelling unit, and 28 parking spaces for the clubhouse, and 14 curb parking spaces, in which you will see on the upcoming site plan. Here is the existing conditions of the property. You can see that it's vacant on both sides. To the north, it's RS4 residential, single-family residence 4. To the south is RS4. To the west is RS4, and to the east is RS3, and it's consistent with the existing neighborhood. Here is a site plan of the proposed development. This is a list of the review standards that the project is subject to meet. Staff finds that there is competent competent substantial evidence in the record that the development is consistent in compliance with the 12 site plan review standards as identified in the staff report, with the exception of staff recommended conditions of approval. Staff has 2 conditions. The second condition, as referenced on this PowerPoint, was not mentioned in the staff report. And the following conditions are: on all elevation sheets, call out all architectural features to demonstrate compliance with variability and required number of design features for each model. Repetitive look-alike multi-building development shall be prohibited. Multi-building development subject to these standards shall ensure that each structure is distinguished from other through the use of the 2 or more features found in 155.5601.c.4. And the second condition is provide HOA documents that clearly state that the trees on the property are protected, cannot be removed, and must be pruned and maintained in accordance currently accepted ANSI A300.1 industry standards and industry best management practices. And this concludes my presentation. I'm available for further questions.
So just to understand, in our report, the third condition was on it, but the second one was not. So
The first condition was there, but not the second condition. But for the provide the HOA staff, the HOA documents.
okay, so in our, I'm looking at our staff report. So there was actually 2 conditions, right? The second one was not included? The one that, about the HOA was not included in ours?
Yes, that this condition is not included, second condition.
Okay.
Or maybe,
So the third condition on this, that's actually listed in our conditions, so that one's not included?
I'm sorry, let me,
So if you look at your PowerPoint, you have 3 conditions, right? And 3 has like a bunch of subparts to it, correct?
correct, yes.
Okay, now, does that one apply?
Those do
It
apply,
does.
I'm just not reading into the record, yes.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
so
I'm
you
sorry, I
want to
was
read that one
confused.
into the record then, or?
Okay, the second condition,
No, the third, you read the second condition into the,
okay, so this will be the third condition, provide HOA documents that clearly state.
oh, I'm sorry, no, the condition that has A through H, would you read that one? Because you didn't read that in.
Okay, I can read, those are standard conditions.
Okay, you're not reading it because it's standard conditions. is what
Yes,
You're saying, I'm
so
sorry,
the
I misunderstood.
Not a problem.
It applies,
Same
you're
page
saying it
with you.
applies, but it does, it just is, you didn't call it out, okay.
Yes,
So there's 3 conditions, because on our backup, there's only 2 conditions shown, that's why.
Yes, so you only have, the 2 conditions.
1 and
which is
3.
those
We have
specific-
1 and 3 is what we have.
Yeah, 1 and 3, yes, and I'm reading now the
Okay.
more specific condition that needs to be met prior to building permit, which is the
Okay.
HOA documents, and I do
I
apologize.
got
for
it,
the confusion.
I got it now. I
All right.
finally got it, okay.
It's okay, we arrived
So
to the.
there's 3 conditions is what we're going to.
There is 3 conditions,
Okay.
yes.
Go ahead, Mrs. Coleman.
Is there going to be a presentation from the applicant, the Housing Authority?
Okay, it looks like he was shaking his head yes.
Okay, I'll hold my questions.
Okay,
I had one question before we go to the applicant, though.
okay,
I noticed that on these plans, and I was trying to remember when we did the Hunter's Manor project that was a single-family project similar to this.
yes.
I can't remember whether there was no sizes on the trees. But I noticed that this landscape plan had all the trees listed, but it didn't have sizes. Is there a reason why that's the case?
I know that there is a prototype for each model. There's 4 models, and like I said, it hasn't been reviewed by AAC, but what the applicant submitted was 4 models and 2 options per model, which was reviewed outside of the process. And so each model type has a prototype landscape plan.
Okay.
And I don't know about the tree dimensions.
That's fine. I think probably what happens, because these are individual permits, right? For each residence, you have one.
Yes.
You have one master, You have one development order, but you have 36 permits, or whatever you have.
Yes, it was not specified,
So when
but
they do that, they'll review it, Wade's office will review it for the correct sizes.
right, so these are more like tract homes, so they
Right.
have the option to pick their floor plan and model.
Perfect.
And the compliant landscape plan that they need for the time and building permits. So as it comes in, we will look at the overall
They will, yeah.
pervious area, and then we will deduct it from there.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
Anybody else before we have the applicant? No. Applicant, are you going to make a presentation? No? You are? Okay. I love it. Tom Johnson used to say that, too.
No. This will be brief.
And he said that, I said, you have a brief? You actually have a brief presentation? And then he'd go on for 10 minutes, whatever.
So, let me go ahead and introduce myself. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Mike Vondermeulen with Keith. Our address is 301 East Atlantic Boulevard, and I have been sworn.
Okay.
With me tonight, we do have Mr. Leonard Robinson, who is the executive director of the Pompano Beach Housing Authority,
Okay.
along with our project architects, which is DeMello Architects and Don Design Group. And the presentation by staff was very good, very thorough, but we do have some more pretty pictures, so I thought I'd show you the pretty pictures.
Okay.
You saw the site, you saw the site plan. These are the various different model layouts that we had provided. You can see the landscaping. And then these are the actual models. And you can see some of them have, it may not be too detailed there, but you do have hip roofs as well as gabled roofs on the garages for different architectural differentiation. So this is two of the different models here, along with their reverses where the garage is on the other side, where it's flipped. And then there you have the two-story model, as well as one additional one-story model. All have two-car garages, all have a two-car driveway. There's plenty of parking at the clubhouse. We have a very large berm and landscape area along Blanche-Elu Boulevard. It's going to be a really, really nice project. So I'll conclude there and just answer any questions you may have.
Okay, and we have no problem with what is now 3 conditions of staff?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions of the applicant? Yes, Mrs. Coleman, go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work. There is an HOA.
There will be an HOA.
There will be an HOA. Have basic documents been drawn yet? In other projects that have come before us, there have been issues like no place to put the trash cans, that sort of thing. How large are these lots? Can you tell me? Are all the lots the same size? It kind of looks like they are.
Yeah, they're all very similar in size. We had to put an emergency exit along down in the southeast corner for police and fire. So that's actually just an emergency exit. That's not an in and out. The site is intended to be gated at the front entrance at Blanche-Ely. And, okay, great. And the trash cans are in the garage. There is space available inside the garage.
That's really not ideal. A trash can inside a garage is a real problem because people don't want their trash cans inside their garage. They're smelly. So I think that the board's talked about that before. So that means the lots are 50-foot lots?
No, there's
75-foot lots?
There's six, they're what, minimum
They're
6,000?
they're
60 foot.
close to
60 foot
60,
one.
yes.
60 by 100. Okay. But a requirement that you have to keep your trash cans in your garage is very problematic. Since you have HOA documents, will there be on-street parking allowed?
I think it's going to be discouraged along the main median, and there are actually pull-off spaces on the east road, and then there is very ample parking on the, at the clubhouse.
Okay, I see the parking spaces next to the clubhouse. How does this work in a housing authority project? These are for sale houses, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you just build them all and hope they come, or do the individual buyers come in, pick their lots, and pick some of the final finishes on the house?
I'll let Mr. Robinson go ahead and maybe explain the business plan, but my understanding, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're going to bring in each individual property owner, and then the house will be built.
By the way, please don't take these questions as hostile. I'm very excited that you're doing this wonderful single-family home development. It's just, I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about it.
Good evening. My name is Leonard Robinson. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Pompano Beach. We're at 325 West Atlantic Boulevard. I think that's the right one, yeah. I'm new, so anyway, I'm coming in.
Welcome.
Basically, what we're going to be doing is we have already gone out and gotten housing actually credit counseling. So we're going to be doing homeowner counseling, and we're going to be pre-qualifying our buyers prior to us coming in. So we'll have qualified buyers to purchase the homes as we go in and start building them. We'll build them at nine houses in each phase. And as we go through that process, we've gone through a phasing process. And for your question in regards to why the garbage cans are in the garage, it's because DRC told us we had to. We wanted to put them outside. They told us we had to put them inside.
Well, okay, that's going to be an issue going forward, I think, because that's going to be an issue going forward. We don't want to have your people have their garbage cans in the garages.
We want them there.
Okay, all right, but that aside.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to correct that. My name is Daniel Keystrom-Mills. I'm principal planner here. The garbage cans do not have to be inside the garage. They can be outside. They just have to be screened with some sort of a fence. So it can be outside. I think that the applicant isn't proposing a fence around the entire property, so should there be a screened enclosures for where the garbage recycle bins are, they can be outside. So just want to clarify that for the record.
Okay, got it. They're either screened or they're in the garage. Great. Okay, great answer. So, sir, just one more question. Does that means as you're building each of your nine houses, you basically know who's going to get that house?
That's correct.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. Wonderful.
Thank
you. I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Clausewitz, go ahead.
What are the price ranges of these homes?
Glad you asked that question too. Also, we're going to establish a community land trust. The properties will be sold minus the land costs, and that'll maintain those properties as being affordable. There'll be a 99-year lease on them. The properties will be sold with the improvements, and that basically we're looking at around $350,000 to $400,000 with the larger piece from there.
And the owners of the homes don't really own the ground that they're on, the lot.
That's correct.
I see.
But that makes it affordable, so that's the way we would like to keep it that way too. Thank you.
I have a question. Thanks. I love this project. So you said it makes it affordable. That was a great segue into my question, which was the HOA. Will it too be affordable? Because I read the second one that the staff added about the HOA and the trees, I mean, sometimes that's the first thing people fail to pay is the HOA. I don't want to say, well, I didn't cut that tree because said person didn't pay their HOA fees. So I don't want the HOA fees to be astronomical and then the person cannot afford to pay it, which we don't want the property going down. I guess my other question was about maybe the sidewalk, because I know Sanders Park is just to the south of this project. So did you all take into consideration there's a lot of heavy traffic there with walkers for Sanders Park students?
Well, the entire parcel will be fenced.
Okay, good, thank you.
So it's going to be fenced, and
I see the fence, but then it was, okay, I see it now.
yeah, it's all the way around. But to answer your question in regards to the homeowners association, under a community land trust, there are requirements for the homeowners to maintain and pay all fees that are due from that standpoint. We have a long-term lease, and there's a minimal amount. We have the ability to waive those fees in order to make it more affordable for those individuals who may have problems as they go through the process. So we've got maintained control of that and making sure that the property is maintained also from that standpoint.
I was just primarily thinking about seniors. It might seem nominal, but if you're a senior citizen and you want to, get a home, they're very nice. That really was my audience that I was thinking more about. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Okay. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And if there are no other comments, the chair will entertain a motion on item number 4.
Have a motion.
Sure. Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
Move that the board find that there's competent, substantial evidence that's been presented for the major site plan, the Blanche Eli Estates in LN 507, that satisfies the review criteria, and move approval of the item subject to the 3 conditions provided by staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Bobby, call the roll.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes.
Thank you
Good
very
luck. This is a great project. It really should be a great project. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, item number 5, Archie 1, P&Z 22-12, 4039, 200 North Federal Highway. And I believe Mrs. Stanton, you're presenting? Looks like we're building a studio here or something. Got a movie going in here tonight, or what's up? Yeah, he said. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Board members. Pamela Stanton with Development Services. This agenda item is for the consideration of the major site plan application for the Archie 1 mixed-use development at 200 North Federal Highway. The project site is on the east side of North Federal Highway, 2 blocks north of East Atlantic Boulevard. This aerial photo or map shows the project site as we know it, where the old funeral home currently is. And this photo isn't current. It doesn't show the Celeste project directly to the north that you approved just over a year ago, and it's currently well under construction. And this is an old enough photograph, shows where the vacant lot where those Christmas trees were sold for so many years. The details of the project I will let the developer and his design team get into, but a brief summary is that the project proposes a 7-story mixed-use building with 95 units and ground floor commercial space facing Federal Highway, and the site is just under an acre. The project is utilizing 2 density bonus options that are available in the core sub-area of the TO-EOD. First, the public art density bonus, plus the density bonus option where 100% of the required parking is within a parking structure. The total of those two bonus options would allow an additional 34 units, of which the applicant is adding 19 to the 76 units allowed by right, for the total of 95 units. And the project was reviewed by the Development Review Committee for various revisions throughout 2023 and received building design approval in June from the Architectural Appearance Committee. This site plan shows the extent of the building footprint and the relationship of the ground floor building liner with the rest of the site and context, as the project has 3 street frontages, with Federal Highway as a primary street, Northeast 2nd Street and 22nd Avenue as secondary streets in the EOD. The EOD establishes the hierarchy of streets within that district. And last, should the board find that the application has provided competent substantial evidence to satisfy the review standards for major site plan approval, the Development Services Department recommends including the following conditions. 1, the density bonus option number 1 was selected in order to qualify for an additional 20 units per acre in the center sub-area portion of the project. In the core sub-area of the project. Identify which strategy will be applied. A fee equal to 1% of the project's construction cost, or $250,000, whichever is less, or a piece of artwork valued at 1% of the project's construction cost, or a maximum of $250,000, whichever is less. If a piece of artwork is proposed, clarify where the artwork will be located. The artwork must be accessible to the public and may be displayed in public open spaces or along areas along the street abutting the building. The art must receive recommendation by the Public Art Committee and approval by the City Commission. And the funds in lieu of art or an appropriate bonding instrument must be placed in escrow at the time of building permit and will be held until the art is approved after installation. The second staff condition, comply with the affordable housing requirements as defined in code by either setting aside a minimum of 15% of the proposed units as affordable housing or contribute the in lieu of fee for each unit prior to building permit approval. If providing the 15% affordable housing, the city will apply Broward County Policy 2.16.3 or 2.16.4, whichever is more appropriate, to generate the project's entitlements, thereby preserving units in the ETOC basket of rights. Third and last, as usual, standard conditions of approval and or specifications required prior to building permit and zoning compliance permit issuance. That concludes my presentation. The developer and his design team are here. Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Mrs. Coleman.
Ms. Stanton, our staff report said 97 units. You said 95 units. Which is it?
And it is 95.
Yeah.
In my apologies, we had anticipated the project going before this committee earlier. This is the, it was postponed until, or delayed until this month, and it was reduced from 95 to 97, or from 97 to 95.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay. Mrs. West, are you presenting, or? Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Paula West. I am Senior Land Planner and Principal of Plan West. Address is 10152 Indian Town Road, Unit 159, Jupiter, Florida. Takes me a while to get that. With me, I have our project team. I have George Akertava, who is representing the owner, Javier Barrera, who is the architect, and Camilo Diaz, who is also part of the architecture team, in case you have any questions. So, as Pamela mentioned, the project is called Archie 1, and we are at 200 North Federal Highway. As you can see, there are two buildings on the property. It's the home of the Crayers funeral home. Both of those buildings are going to be demolished to accommodate the new project. As Pamela mentioned, we did reduce the project down, so we are providing 95 units with the project. We are also providing the proper lot width and lot depth as required by code. We are providing the proper impervious and pervious, and as you know, in the overlay, we have a different pervious and lot coverage requirement we're meeting. We are also providing the 80-foot maximum building, and we're providing over the minimum required parking spaces for the project. We are doing a tower building typology in accordance with that overlay. We're also located in the TO land use as well as the zoning. As she also mentioned, we're under an acre. We're not requesting any variances, deviations, or adjustments for the project. We've worked very hard with staff. As you saw, we've had multiple DRC meetings to make sure that the design is properly code compliant. And as she also mentioned, we are requesting 2 density bonuses, one for the public art, and I'll talk about that at the end, and the structured parking as well. So just some stats, the 95 units are broken down into 4 studio units, 55 one-bedrooms, that's the bigger demand, 32 two-bedrooms, and 4 three-bedrooms, ranging from over 500 square feet to 1,500 or so square feet. We are providing over 5,000 square feet of ground floor retail. We are fully structured with our parking. We have a co-working space that I'll show you in the floor plan on the 2nd floor. Our 4th floor amenity deck has the pool, the gym, the lanai terraces, and some covered outdoor space. The typical floor levels, which are the 5th and the 7th through the 7th level, have tenant storage for the units. And as Pamela mentioned, we were approved by the DRC and unanimously approved by the AAC, which we're very happy about. So this is the site plan, and I'll get into the floor plan in detail in a minute. So on the floor plan, you can see in the pink, that is the commercial space. The cyan blue color is the lobby and some office space. And the 3 units on the to the right are actually what we call our townhome units, which are units that are accessible right from the street. Here's the 2nd floor plan, and that blue area is that co-working space that I mentioned. And the 4th level has all of your amenities in blue. And then your typical has that in green, the tenant storage spaces as well. And these are just our elevations. I will talk about that little flower mural in a minute when I address the conditions of staff. And here's the other elevations. And the architecture team is going to get into more of detail of the design. Our landscape plan has 9 species of trees, 12 to 24 feet, 2 species of palms, and 14 species of shrubs and ground covers. We are very excited to say that we have gotten very good support from Wade, so we've worked with him pretty good as well. That's just an image from Federal Highway, looking at the project. And regarding the staff conditions for the first one, we will work with staff, so we understand that that mural does not necessarily is not visible or accessible from the public as it's intended and as the city would like. We're going to work with staff to figure out where we can fit a piece of artwork. If that is not a possibility, we're going to pay into the fund. For number 2, we're going to be doing the affordable housing in lieu fee. The project was not designed to incorporate the affordable housing units. And with the standard conditions of approval, we will make sure that we meet each one of them. About the SCAD letter, we do have a preliminary SCAD determination from the school board, and we request the final as soon as we get our development order from this board. And with that, I will pass it over to the architecture team.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Camilo Diaz with the Forma Studio at 5555 Biscayne Boulevard in Miami. That's right. I haven't been sworn in yet.
He has not?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So as Ms. West explained, this is a mixed-use project with retail, parking, and residential components. The building is 7 stories tall and has a total of 95 residential units. I'm going to As Paula explained already, we have our retail component facing our primary frontage at North Federal Highway. The intention is to have a walkway parallel to this with a canopy running all along the facade to provide an opportunity for shade for the retail spaces, and also to have outdoor seating if the tenants happen to be a cafe, restaurant, that kind of establishment. On 2nd Street, we have the retail component turn the corner and have the lobby for the residential part of the project. Now on 22nd, we have what we're calling townhouse units, which have their main entrance right on the sidewalk. We have a set of stoops with planters to bring the scale of that part of the building down so that it better matches what is happening on the other side of the street, which is smaller buildings. The entire garage in this level is lined by these components. On our typical parking level, we have residential units lining all the North Federal, 2nd, and 22nd sides of the property, so as to cover the entire garage. On the 4th level is our amenities level. Here we have a gym. We have the pool deck facing west. We also have a set of planters and terraces, basically, that provide sort of a buffer toward Federal, that also, provide a little bit of a contrast to the architecture of the building, which is very rectilinear, very, very straight angled. We want to have very lush garden above it, kind of softening everything up a little bit. And our typical level is our residential level. And as Ms. West mentioned, we have a set of tenant storage in the middle of the building for all these levels. So we tried to articulate the massing of the building in 3 separate components. The idea is so that to minimize the size of the building, we kind of broke it into three different volumes that have their distinct identities. The podium is one. This part of the tower that you're seeing in the rendering in the screen, which is very orthogonal, very grid-like. And then, I believe is the other rendering you have is one on our easel. The other component is a little bit taller than the other one, just to mask all our mechanical equipment in the roof. And the facade treatment is a little bit more fluid. It's a little more movement, so that it kind of contrasts the orthogonal one, the grid-like one. And basically, that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I don't know that Mrs. West said this, maybe she did. You have no problem with the 3 conditions of staff?
We don't.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions of the applicant? Mr. Klasowitz, you look like you're ready to go.
Are these units for sale, or are they for rent?
For rent.
Rental units?
Yes, rental.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mrs. Coleman, go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out, by the way, the building is beautiful.
Thank you.
But on one of the other, there's the renderings, and then there's the elevations, and it appeared with a western view that part of the mural was visible on the west side. Is it set back from the street? Is that what I'm saying?
It is set back. That part of the
Okay.
building is set back. There's a park that's in front, and that's sort of what we've been trying to work with staff to kind of figure out. Is the park is there, it has trees, and part of the fear is that the trees are going to be blocking a lot of the mural. So that's why we're trying to figure out the correct placement, the size
For the art.
for the artwork to make sure that it's fully publicly accessible.
It's quite a beautiful mural, by the way.
Thank you.
How wide is the sidewalk on on Federal? Can you tell me?
The sidewalk there is actually 5 feet.
Okay. I don't know if anyone else on the board has received calls about the development that's going up next door to that, but I've received a lot of calls questioning my mental state at the time that was approved because it appears to overhang Federal Highway, and it's so close to Federal Highway. And I'm trying to figure out how this building and that building are going to mesh. That's probably a better question for staff than it is for you, unless you'd like to try to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is clear is that the park, there's essentially a park that separates the two, although it doesn't fully separate the two properties, but at Federal, there is that buffer in between the two buildings. So the park that Celeste project is providing does separate the two buildings. I mean, the sidewalk itself in front of our property is 5 feet, but we are pulled back from that, and we have a walkway that is 7 feet on top of the street sidewalk, the city sidewalk.
Okay.
It's 7 feet adjacent to the building, 5 feet out in line with
Okay.
the city sidewalk.
Yes.
And the 7 foot is covered?
Covered with by the
this
canopy.
elevate, by
Correct.
the 3-story element or whatever it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So when you look at it, I think what Mrs. Coleman's getting at, or at least I would like to get to, is if you look down, if you were standing in the Burger King lot and you're looking down that sidewalk, their building will stick out in front of the elevation of yours?
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that it.
I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah, we'll ask staff.
Go ahead.
Hi there. The Celeste project to the north has a colonnade that comes out above the ground plane, and the building above it, up until the amenity level, will stick out. I'd have to.
But this building is set back from that.
Well, there's another dimension on there which I can't read because I have old eyes.
Yeah, I couldn't read it
That the gray on this plan that's in between the two sidewalks has a dimension. So this colonnade is set back in addition to whatever the sidewalk is. There's a dimension that looks like
It's
about
10'5".
Okay.
It's
Okay.
So those columns are going to be back 10'5".
Okay.
Which I do not believe is the case.
Right, I don't
I'm
think it
kind
is
of with
either.
you. I go to that bank once a week, so
Yeah.
I drive in that, and I look up and say, yeah, this reminds me of construction. They're going to drop something on me. I feel it.
But I commend your style. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions before we move? Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak on this? Okay, seeing none. I wanted to make one other comment as well, and this is obviously tonight it's about your project, but I think it's one of the things, and Mrs. West knows this because I bothered her a lot during the course of the e-talk. I spent a lot of time with her. Probably she'll never get back. But we talked a lot about this concept, and we have the other project that's up on 6th Street, where you have a completely enclosed garage. I think the sustainability of having projects in a downtown area where you really do not see those garages long-term will make them a little more timeless than ones where we get a little bit more exposure. So I realize you got a bonus for that, but we really wanted that, I think, that element, and I think it's a very important thing for us long-term. So I do want to appreciate that, and it's one of the things that we pushed very hard for when we did this overlay district. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Anybody else have any questions? I think I opened it up. Did I close it? I closed it, didn't I? The public. Yeah. Okay. With that, unless we've already got them to agree to the conditions. I did want to ask one other question. The glass on this is blue-green? Is it?
Sorry, the what?
The color of the glass on the building?
Yes, blue-green.
It's like an azure color.
I mean,
bluish
it's
green.
like a Coke bottle.
Yeah. Cobalt. Okay, so it's a little more blue. Okay.
A Coke bottle. It's a blue-green. It's very,
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it, it looks transparent, but it has a little bit component of greenish blue in it.
Okay. No, I like that color, so I think it's pretty. Anyway, okay, with that, the chair will entertain a motion on item number 5.
Make a motion.
Go ahead. Who wants, Mrs. King, go ahead.
Make a motion that the board finds competent, substantial evidence has been presented for a major site plan LN-451 that satisfies review standards, and that the board recommends approval subject to the 3 conditions requested by staff.
Yes. Okay.
I'll second the motion, Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on item number 5, please.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is item number 6. I bet you don't have all these pretty renderings, do you? You know what? You're still learning. You're still learning. It doesn't matter. Okay. Item number 6, Pompano City Center PCD amendment, P&Z 22-13504, and it's at 1400 to 1460 Northeast 23rd Street. Mrs. Stanton, are you going to go first, Mr. Mealy, or how's this working? Is that what was decided? Okay. Okay, so he's going to do the general, and then you're going to go to the specific?
Yes, I'm just getting
Okay,
it
so-
set up so he can.
Okay, so actually what's going to happen here is before Mrs. Stanton makes the presentation on item number 6, Mr. Mealy is going to give us an overview for 6, 7, and 8, and then we'll back up.
Thank you. Dennis Mealy, 200 East Broward Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, on behalf of the applicant. And I'll do a general description of items 6, 7, and 8. Just a little housekeeping first. 6 and 7 do not have conditions, but 8 does. I believe there's 7 specific conditions, and then the 8th condition is the standard one with 7 parts, and we agree to all of them. I just thought I'd do that now so you didn't have to bring me back and ask me.
Okay.
So we have a few slides to show. I was hoping we weren't going to have this stuff dropping in like that, but. So here's our site. I mean, you all know the city center. You may recall approximately 2 years ago, we were here for the land use amendment to remove this 12-acre site from the commercial portion and make it residential with a density of 29 units and change per acre, 29.5. So what we're doing tonight is, in order to develop this as residential, we have to pull it out of the Planned Commerce District, the PCD, because that's generally a district for commercial uses, just as we pulled it out of the commercial land use and made it residential when we amended the land use map. So item 6 is the amendment to the PCD to remove the 12-acre parcel and then to show how it changes the balance of 47 acres that remains in the PCD. And then item number 7 is the rezoning of the residential parcel to RM30, and with a 29.5 unit per acre land use, RM30 is really the district to use. And then item number 8 is the site plan for the residential portion. So I'll just do kind of a general overview, and then I understand you'll be looking at each one specifically. So this is the portion that's going to residential. So in this drawing, you have Copens Road along the top. Along the side, I guess the engineers like to call Federal Highway State Road 5. I didn't know it was State Road 5. I always thought it was US 1, but that's on the right-hand side. And then you see outlined in yellow is the portion that's going to residential. And then again, the proposed zoning map, so you see that the B3/PCD would remain in effect for the 47 acres, and then the RM30 would be proposed for the 12 acres. And then this is our site plan. So along the left-hand side and the bottom would be the golf course, the city's golf course. And then along the top and the right would be the balance of the shopping center for the city center PCD, and we'll kind of go into that. So when we did the land use amendment, we committed up front that 15% of our units would be affordable, and we're keeping that in effect. And you'll see in one of the conditions for the site plan, they actually say that prior to getting a building permit, we need to demonstrate that we've done that. And what that means is you not only agree that your rents for those 15% of the units will be below a certain number, but you also agree to keep that in effect for 30 years. So you do a restrictive covenant saying that you always have to have 15% of these units affordable for the next 30 years. And of course, we will do that. That is the standard procedure to do that. You notice that we're not buying out of it by paying a fee, building the affordable housing on the property. So these are just some renderings of some of the buildings. I'm sorry I don't have a easel with gourds, but we just thought we'd do it this way. We've got different building types, so I'll show you each of them. If you have any questions, of course, at any point, please stop me. And, you know, one of the great things about this is not only does this offer an opportunity for a lifestyle where you're living in an active place, where you have shopping and everything, but then on the other side, you have the golf course, which is, you know, green and open, and, you know, so it gives you a little bit of both, a green area and an urban environment as well, all in the same place. That's one of the reasons we're so excited about it. And you've probably been reading that there's a lot of this going on, taking down portions of shopping centers and putting in residential. We did it recently at Coral Square Mall in Coral Springs. Not too long ago, we had another shopping center in Sunrise where it was very deep, and we tore down the buildings in the back, moved some of those tenants up to the front, and then built residential behind it. Doing that here. If you're following what's happening with old Sears stores all over the country, this is happening everywhere. As retail is declining some, this is a way to bring new life here, people that live here that could shop here. So it's a trend that we're seeing nationwide. Just another one of our building types. And the site plan, when you look at number 8, is basically the same site plan that we showed when we did the land use amendment with a few changes. Number 1, we got comments early on from staff to make sure that we beefed up the landscaping adjacent to the golf course so that if someone isn't shooting the ball straight the way they're supposed to, it's not going to come into the property and hit a building or hit somebody. So we kind of pulled things back a little bit, put a bunch of landscaping in along the golf course to account for, I guess, the lack of skill of some of the golfers that might be out there. I don't play golf, so I guess I can say that. And then this is our pool area. The other thing we did, you have a rule in your code, which is a very good rule, that you should not have parking on both sides of a building like this. That maybe one side should be parking, but the other side should be something else, like an amenity area, or the golf course, or a landscape buffer. And so you see here, this is one of the buildings facing the amenity area and the pool area. So the other thing we looked at is traffic routes. So these are the traffic routes for vehicles. I have a separate one I'll show you for pedestrians. But you see that you're still able to get around here. One of the things we did here is that a lot of people like to come off of Copens, come around the back side of the shopping center and go out to Federal. So that area that you see now, it is not a public street, it's private, but we know that people use it. And so we were actually asked to make sure that we did not eliminate the shortcut, as people referred to it. So we did not eliminate the shortcut. You can still do it. even though it's not really designed for that, but you can still do it just like you could before. And then pedestrian routes. So this is, again, if you're looking at the way the shopping center looks today, you see that we would be down in that lower left-hand corner. But these are all the routes now for pedestrians. So actually, the perimeter of this site adjacent to the golf course has a beautiful walkway with trees, and I've seen people out there rollerblading and riding bikes and walking. And again, that's being preserved. That is not being removed. It's being kept in place. And what we're doing, so now if you drop our residential into that little white space that's over to the lower left, we're preserving all of the access points out to that walkway that runs along the perimeter of the site adjacent to the golf course, but we've also added another connection that will take you from this residential property into the shopping center. Is there a way to point at something, like a little pointer or something? That'd be great. Would you show me how to do that? My technological skills are wanting. I want to point it there, right? Thank you. Thank you very much. So if you can see where the pointer is, we've added another crosswalk to take you into the shopping center, and I'll show you how that's going to work. So if you see on this plan, and you see that little box of black dotted lines, so when we tear down the Macy's store, we now need to put a new face on the building behind it, right? So there's going to be a new retail area added where this little black dotted line is. And I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. And so we put the walkway from our site to go out basically to take you right to that location. Because the thought is they're going to be able to put in some new retail, restaurant type uses there. We think restaurants would be perfect. And you could walk right to it from this development without getting in your car. I mean, you can walk to other places on the property. Since that's going to be brand new, we kind of focused on that as a good place to take our pedestrians when they're going into the shopping center. So the idea here is that you can walk from one to the other. Now, we will have a secured perimeter, so if you live here, you'll have a fob or whatever where you can walk out, but when you want to come back through that gate, you'll need to put the fob up to go back through the gate. So it'll keep our residential secured, but it'll also allow it to interface with the commercial that's next to us. And then this is where the architects are trying to make sure I'm on my toes, because you'll notice that the plan on the lower right, north is pointing up, but for some reason, the plan on the left, they put north pointing down. So at any rate, and I don't know why they did that. At any rate, so you see this is that new area, the new face on that building where I showed you the little black dotted lines, and it'll have a courtyard area out in front, which would be perfect for outdoor dining, for tables and umbrellas and so on. And again, this is right across from that little crosswalk I showed. And then the other thing we've done, and if you look at this, what's on the screen now, if you look at the lower left, that's a key map showing you what we're focusing on. So you see that's the, I guess that would be like the northwest edge of our residential development. And you'll notice, if you go out there and you look at it, you'll notice that some of the drive aisles adjacent to us that are still in the shopping center don't have as many landscape islands as you would now want them to have, because this was built so long ago. So we're adding a number of landscape islands in that area so that when you're driving by here, on the right-hand side, you're going to see our landscape buffer and all the lush landscaping we put in. Well, on the left-hand side, you shouldn't see nothing. You shouldn't just see a bunch of parking spaces. So we've added landscape islands in that area to make both sides of the drive aisle look nice. And then this is the walkway I was talking about. And so to the right-hand portion, that's that new face on the commercial building where the Macy's is removed. And then within our development is on the left. On our edge of the development there, we have some of those single-story garages. You've seen them on apartment complexes. And then there's a spot between the garage. We can run the sidewalk right through there and then take you on the crosswalk that we're showing. We already had there, but it was originally envisioning if you were walking on the outside of the residential. Now you can walk on the outside of the residential and get to that crosswalk. You can also come from inside the residential and get to that crosswalk. And then we thought, when we do the crosswalk, we would do something special. We'll work with the staff on the exact colors and everything, but you want people to see it, you want them to slow down. Of course, there'll be stop signs and everything, but you want them to see it, you want them to slow down, and you want them to recognize people are walking through here. So this is just a treatment we've used in some of our other developments that we thought we would use here. I know I'm getting into maybe a little bit too much detail, but we wanted to show that. And then the other thing that we heard when we have talked to people about this project is there's a parking field in the shopping center. I guess it's kind of near J. Mark's and the ABC Liquors, where people drive their cars diagonally through the parking lot because there's nothing to stop them. So what Sterling has been doing, Sterling is the shopping center owner who we're purchasing from. We actually are purchasing from two entities, Sterling and Macy's. But Sterling is adding wheel stops into those areas to stop people from cutting diagonally through the parking lot. And so we wanted to show you that. I know that most of the improvements we're showing tonight have to do with the residential, but there are a few improvements in the commercial. One of them is these wheel stops I talked about. The other one is that new face on the building where we're tearing down the Macy's. And then the third one, if you're familiar with the Lowe's Home Improvement Store, it has an outdoor storage area on the south side of the store that if you're on the perimeter, you can see all these bags and boxes and stuff. So they're going to enclose that outdoor area to make it more like a garden center that's fenced in with a wall and everything. So whatever's stored will be behind that and not in plain view like it is now. And that's basically it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And as you go through the individual items, if I have any comments, I'll raise my hand.
Okay. Do you guys want to ask questions now, or you want to go through it one at a time?
I'm going to ask questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Coleman.
First, let me disclose that I have met with the applicant. I've told him that my decision would be made tonight. I gave him no commitments, and so I'm within the letter of what we needed to do. But I had some questions which he was able to answer, and I've got a few more tonight on his new plan. So let me understand this. There is now a perimeter road. It goes all the way around the edge from the light on Copens to the light on 18th and Federal.
Correct.
Now, the pathway where the walkers and the bikers use, you have your fences and landscaping, then there's the roadway, and then there's the pathway?
So are you talking about currently or proposed?
Proposed.
Okay. So let me get to the right slide. I think this one's probably a good one to show it. So on the edge next to the golf course, that will still have the landscaping, the walkways, the trees, but the parking, at least adjacent to our portion, will not be there anymore. Instead, that roadway now runs, I'm going to see if I can do that cursor thing. I think I'm doing it. Am I doing it? Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right.
Go down some.
You still come in off Copeland's.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, and you can still go out. So instead of going this way, you're going this way.
So you're going this way, but there's still parking spaces that will back into this area?
So on the current configuration, there's 171 parking spaces that back onto the perimeter road.
Right.
Under the new configuration, that'll be reduced from 171 to 128. And I can show you where those are, by the way. Let me.
Okay.
So this is the current scenario, and where you see the orange line and the numbers, those are the 171 spaces that currently back out on that perimeter road. And then in our proposed configuration, it's down from 171 to 128, and you see a few places where we have it. Now, along the bottom, where you see the 11 and the 32, and that's pretty much the same as it was before. It's the other ones here that are now taking the place of the ones that were on the perimeter before. But we've reduced the number of parking spaces backing out onto that road we've reduced it by 43 spaces, which was pretty significant.
But you do understand, Mr. Mealy, that there were never any cars in those spaces. There was never anything back there.
Well, when I went out there, I did notice that the striping was faded, but it was faded in a lot of places. But I also noticed that at least for those times that the police department or the sheriff's office is out there with their different training exercises, it was pretty much blocking off that same area anyway. Now, I know they're not there all the time. When they are there, it's pretty much the same route that you would be taking with what we're showing now. And
is it going to be marked in any way as a roadway, or is it just simply going to be as a divided roadway, or is it just simply going to be asphalt?
So today, it's just, unless you get right at the US 1 or right at Copens where there's a little entry median, the rest of it today is just 2 lanes of asphalt with a stripe. And it's going to be somewhat similar here, too. Now, if there's signage that we can do for wayfinding that can help people find their way better, we'd be happy to put it in, and happy to work with the staff to make sure that people know how to get from point A to point B. Because the new route will be a little different than the old route. But I think once everyone gets used to it, if you still want to avoid the light at Federal and Copens, you can still do that.
Okay. What kind of glass are you putting in those windows of all of those buildings you are lining the golf course with? Because you are going to have balls hitting that building.
What kind of glass?
It
Yes.
means like impact, it's going to be
Is it going to impact glass?
Impact glass.
Yeah.
That Jose Salmel in the 4th row is our architect. I was just looking at
It
him.
would have to be impact glass, just because you couldn't put shutters up
It
that
may not look like a Coke bottle like the previous guy, but
Yeah.
impact glass.
Well, I am concerned there's going to be golf balls hitting that building, and I'm concerned that they not go through the windows.
We hear you. And we had a lot of discussion about that. One of your staff members plays a lot of golf there. He was talking about hooks, slices.
It's not very good.
Well, I heard the whole thing. Yeah, we're going to get golf balls. We know that. And let me say this, too. We were asked, how do we notify residents of this? And actually, we have other developments elsewhere, the Morgan Group, where we're next to golf courses, and we have standard language we put in the leases to let people know you're living next to a golf course, and you might get some golf balls sometime, and maybe they'll hit your car, or whatever. But we let them know. You have to.
There wasn't any way you could do this not to line buildings on the golf course.
Well,
Because I remember when you came 2 years ago and laid out this plan, I think there were some comments you received from the group then that there was not enough green space in the plan, and that you thought that there could be more creativity in this plan on the layout of the buildings.
So we greatly increased the green space. I mean, I know just looking at this plan, not the old one. But these buildings were actually closer to the golf course at one point. Let me use this cursor thing again. These 2 here and these 4 here. We pulled them back. We put more landscaping in between them and the golf course perimeter. But what we had at one point is we had the buildings pulled in a little further, especially these ones down here. But then we had parking on both sides. And your code doesn't allow that. You're supposed to have one side of it like the front door, and the other side's like the back door, and the back door has the parking, and the front door has the, amenities or the landscaping or the perimeter of the golf course or the pool. So we recognize that you're going to have that issue, but I will tell you that, Ms. Coleman, you know me from when I was the city manager at Coconut Creek. We have a golf course in Winmore, and people would call. The ball went through my screened-in porch, and I would say, you live on the golf course. You've got this beautiful view, and sometimes the ball coming in the screened-in porch is part of it, So we're putting everyone on notice of it, and of course, we maintain everything, right? I mean, these are apartment buildings that we own, we manage, and we operate. So, if there's damage, we're fixing it. The tenant doesn't have to fix it. Now, if the tenant's car gets hit with a golf ball, that's...
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just make a comment about Mrs. Coleman's comment. I lived on golf course in Palmyra, and with the impact glass, I think most of the damage will be to cars. So since they've moved the cars away, because they're dings, we got dings all the time from golf balls in Palmyra. So moving the cars away, I think is going to eliminate a lot of the damage that could have been there.
The way we've designed this parking lot, I think you almost would have to hit the ball over the building to go into the parking lot. I mean, there's a spot over here on the left-hand side where there's some spaces, and that's what we heard too, that most in our other developments that are on golf courses, the most complaints we get is when the ball hits somebody's car. And they get a dent in their car, and they come home and they see it, and they're not happy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So how far would you encroach on the area where Wendy's, so that's normally where I park when I walk around the blimp. So I'll park where Wendy's is. How, they have parking as well, right, on Wendy's? So
Their own, yeah.
they have their own, but like how close are we going? Because it's kind of like a driveway through there to the rear.
Can you tell me where Wendy's is? Because I don't know, I'm sorry.
It's the building up on the
Top corner?
upper left corner.
Between your development and
Right there.
Collins Road.
That's it.
Right,
Yeah,
so
it's right by the stoplight.
how is your driveway and then the roadway? I'm sorry, it's been a long day. I'm just trying to envision, I park over there all the time, so I'm trying to envision.
All of this parking that's
Exists.
east of Wendy's is still here.
It's still there, okay.
And then, so what happens with ours is you drive past Wendy's as you come in, right?
Okay, so you go south of Wendy's.
And then you cross over.
So the parking right next to Wendy's is still there. Let me say this too, that in order to do this, we had to get the sign off of 7 different property owners within this property. So you have Sterling, you have Macy's, who we're buying from, so that was simple. But then you had 7 other property owners, some of which own the footprint of their building, some of which own the footprint of the building and the parking field in front of them. So they all had to sign off. And so, obviously, they didn't sign off unless they made sure that we weren't going to hurt their business by taking away their parking or putting something in front of them so nobody could see them or changing the driveway so you can't get there. So pretty much everything we did, we had to come here, City Hall, work with the staff, come up with a solution. And we had to go to the 7 property owners and say, here's what we're going to do. Is this okay? So definitely, you'll still be okay parking in that.
So the behind, now I'm still on the roadway.
Yes.
Behind the roadway, I know the sheriff's office trains over there periodically, but then doesn't some of the parking back there belong to JCPenney's?
All of the parking in our area either belongs to Macy's or Sterling, not JCPenney or Lowe's or any of the other anchors.
But you are going that far up, I guess that would be like
And so
east.
where would the
Tearing the Macy's down.
Pennies would be here, and I'll point at it, because I'm not sure.
That's the Pennies.
It's the.
Right there is the
it's
Pennies.
the next building.
Right, so.
Right, so they
So
still
really
have.
we're behind Penny's and behind their loading dock. So maybe employees from Penny's might have parked in the back there, but I would think most of their shoppers would have parked in the front, by the front door, which would be in this parking field.
Their interest is to Penny's back there.
Is it in the back?
That's Pennies right there.
Yeah.
I know that
I'm
Penny's.
just trying to
I
envision.
don't think, the second one in, it's
Second
not the
one
one
in
you were
is-
pointing to, it's the second one.
in is Pennies.
The middle one.
That's
Right.
Pennies.
I think so.
The second one is the Pennies, because you can walk into the back of it.
Right.
So the parking behind the Penny's is still here.
It's in the same location.
Okay, so it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff to the left of that is PetSmart and Ross, I believe.
Right.
But it's their truck wells. You wouldn't park there unless you wanted to just walk around the building just for fun. I mean, you would
Right,
park
but
on
I
the
understand
other
that
side.
Penny's has the entrance on the other side, so I
Right.
understand why you asked.
Right.
Yeah, but the other stores, you would be behind their truck dock. You wouldn't want.
The truck.
Right, only just I know you can enter through Penny's, so I was just trying to see how far, because the your new road is going to cut through.
To the west. It's going to be west of the Pennies.
We'll still be able to get into Pennies from either side.
Right.
Okay.
Right, you'll still be able to get to the Penny's from either side. That's true.
Okay.
I had a couple of questions. I think they maybe also thoughts, just things to think about. So the bike path that runs, that we're looking at the perimeter of this diagram,
Yes.
Is there going to be a fence from your new property that's going to be there? Like it's separating the bike path from the property?
We'll have the fence on our side, and the bike path and all that will still be on the outside of our fence.
Because as it exists right now, the bike path is very visible from that parking lot. And so my concern, as I'm looking at this, is putting up a fence that abuts directly to the bike path, just for safety concerns. Because it's, you know, it's something where this is going to be now separated out from this open area. It's going to be adjacent to a fence. So it'll be line of sight issues and things like that. So that's just something I wanted to raise, maybe something to think about. Maybe in early morning hours or later, you know, people jogging or walking or biking, having some sort of lighting there, different security issues might be something to think about.
So I believe we've pulled it back far enough, but I'll make sure we will. I obviously, if somebody's riding a bike and they fall, we don't want them to fall into a fence.
Right.
And I understand the question about the visibility as well.
Right, and yeah, some of it's, I mean,
Something for Septet.
not so much the bikes crashing into it, but also, I guess, safety. When you look at it as it exists now, there's a feeling of openness and visibility from people being able to see and not being necessarily blocked by a fence. So even for the residents that are going to be living in the apartment complex too.
We hear you, we agree.
Okay.
And there's also, one of the conditions for the item, for the site plan, is to make sure that the Septet plan is approved. And I know that's one of the things that the officer from the sheriff's office looks at. He doesn't want any places where you can't see in there, you can't see if someone's there. So I'm pretty sure we can take care of that.
Okay. I know, and lighting is kind of a double-edged sword. You may not want too much lighting there, but it may be also something that enhances like a safety feature for even your residents that are taking a lap around.
We're actually good with the lighting.
Okay.
We want, when people are walking on that, because some of those are going to be our residents out there walking or rollerblading or whatever, we want them to be safe, so we want the lighting.
So, and then, so my other question slash thought is, and this applies to your residents as well, and I don't know if there's any been consideration dealt with the county or the city, or even the current owners, but the traffic sometimes gets very backed up at the lights that are there on both areas, where we're talking about with the Wendy's, where Copens is, and then also if you go to the south part where it goes to Federal. Has there been any sort of dialogue or discussion on either enhancing or changing, I don't know if you can really add, but I guess changing or doing something with the traffic lights?
So one of the other things that we have to do in addition to these 3 items on the agenda today is we have to amend the plat note to change from what it is now to what it's going to be. And that means the county is going to be able to review it, and we would definitely ask them to look at the signal timing. Is there enough green time going in the right direction so that you eliminate some of those congestion points? And we would be happy to do that as part of our plat note amendment process.
The timing will be different too, because you're going to have residential and commercial instead of purely commercial. That early morning hour is not one that that shopping center would have had before at the 6:30 to 7:30 or 8 o'clock.
We're going to have more
time.
outbound than inbound at that time.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still going to, you're going to have 2 push points for the residential, right? Generally,
Right.
you know, late and early.
Morning rush hour.
Yeah,
Afternoon.
whereas commercial tends to be more through the day. Once it opens, it starts to get busier and whatever.
Agree.
But it will change the traffic pattern for sure. By the way, I also had discussions with the ownership as well, or with Mr. Mealy and some of the owners' reps and stuff. And again, likewise, just like Mrs. Coleman, I will just rule on it based on what we discussed tonight as well.
Can I go back to the roadway?
I'm sorry.
Can I go back to the street that's going through?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So now it's easy for people to speed right through there because it's really nothing there. And I'm just concerned that you're gonna have families there, you're gonna have kids there. It's gonna look way different, but it's like you're still supporting it of people. I don't know if, it's gonna be quite the same, because now people easily speed through there all the time, because I run out there, so I see people fly right through there. And I don't know if that's conducive for what we have here, so are you gonna be saying that this is, I don't know if you can say it's a private road, it's not really a road, it's not, I mean, what are we going to put here to let people know, like, there's gonna be kids here. It's not gonna be your usual, Daytona 500, like I see when I'm on the trail, people cutting through. I see it all the time out there. They fly through to avoid the light, which is illegal, retired police officer. So they want to avoid the light and they fly through there and they make it out, to Copans. But now you're going to have, other businesses and families and, people coming through there. So I'm just trying to figure out why the road is helpful to you. I don't see it where it is as helpful to you, your residents.
I don't know that, well, let me just say it straight out.
What road?
The road
Well,
isn't there.
I mean,
The road wasn't something that we wanted. We wouldn't have cared if you eliminated it, and neither would Sterling, because what Sterling says is people just use it to cut through the property to avoid the light. But we're told that it was important, we're told it was important to keep it, so we're going to keep it. Now, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to do some traffic calming on it if people are driving too fast, and if you want to do some traffic calming
Here's
on
what
it,
I
it'd be
would
okay.
say on that point, though, and Mrs. King's got a point. We want that road that goes along the golf course and then turns and goes north, assuming you're starting from south to north. We want that to be very easy. I don't necessarily want traffic calming on it. What I would like to see potentially is like what they did on the north side, which was put those wheel stops in the middle of that shop. You have four double runs down here. If you went to the second run and you ran the intermittent wheel stops like they did on the north side, you would stop that cut-through traffic. Nobody could cut through there.
We would be, again, I think, with our 7 specific conditions and 8th general condition, we can work that in, and we're happy to do it. We don't want people flying through there either. It's not a good idea. They really shouldn't be cutting through private property to avoid a light anyway, but
they
it's okay
do,
with
and
us.
Mrs. King's right. I mean, it is. If the police aren't there, I think some of them got shocked when they saw the guys running around on their motorcycles, and they're going, "Oh my God, they caught me already, and I'm only going 35." And because there are people. I have been like along that playing golf there or something, and looking and going, "Man, that was like quite a race you got going there, dude, across the backyard." But I think we're going to be able to cut it down, and if we can make, like you did with the planters, and that line of sight is like trees, as you turn and do that, and maybe one row, I'm not saying go out there and fill the whole thing up, but they did those intermittent ones where they did one on one side and one on the other side to keep the traffic from just being able to get behind Lowe's and then head like a beeline right to that corner, right? So it cuts the cross traffic. And you'd only need to do it on one row, I think, because it would be so inconvenient once you do one row. They're not going to go around it and get into the next row. They're going to just stay on the line,
Right.
And stay where you want them to. And I think the wayfaring signs could be real important too, because you could put something really simplistic, like at the Lowe's, assuming you're going north to south, south to north, a sign that just says Copans Road straight ahead, and then that keeps the people driving along the golf course, and then they're going to get to the end, and then they're going to go north, and then it's pretty obvious you're going to take a left-hand turn. You can only, well, I shouldn't say that.
Right.
You could even put one in the last planter that says left-hand turn to Copans Road, at the truck well, and then it's going to go around, and you still have to snake around, and then when they get to the northwest corner of the new building where you're putting the new elevation, maybe one more sign that says left-hand turn to Copans. That way you'd keep the people on that pathway. They would get trained to do it.
So the extra landscape islands I showed on that one drive aisle and the new crosswalk were added after DRC. So in talking with Ms. Stanton, if you like those, I would ask you to make those an additional condition that we do them. And then you could also add as a condition, if you would like, what the chairman was just describing with respect to signage and
I think one line of
and
bumpers.
some wheel stops.
Yeah,
We'd be perfectly okay.
And that is going to keep. I think it'll keep 95% of the traffic on that road, because once people get used to it, they're going to go. It is damn inconvenient to go in and out of these things. They're not going to do it. So if you had just one line of them, they're going to go. Well, just stay on the road. It's silly, and they'll keep them on the road that we want.
Mr. Chairman, those of us who've lived around this development for a long time and lived here, and it's not a cut through for us, it's a cut to. It's a cut to other things. It's not a cut through. And I think that what you've outlined here is certainly better than what we started with. And I think if we can add the wayfaring signage and the one line of wheel stops, that even improves that plan. And as to this parking lot has been a disaster for the last 40 years. It looks like it was not designed by an engineer, but somebody who flunked out of engineering school. That bad. And all of the wheel stops that you see over there between ABC and now the new IHOP and J-Marks were there because that was so open that at 2 in the morning, the guys that do the wheelies in the middle of the intersections and close things down were using it as one of those. That's the main reason those wheel stops went in. So they could not use, because there was so much rubber on Monday morning on that parking lot that you couldn't see where the parking spaces were supposed to be. And, you know, if they can do something to continue to clean that up, and that's not your issue, that's Sterling's issue. But I think that collaboratively we can make this a little bit better with those 2 additional conditions.
That would be fine with us.
Does anybody have any specific condition situations they want to talk about? Because otherwise, we probably ought to get back on track to start. I think we have a couple, and I think you know what it is, and I think we probably have some solution, but that's really going to end up on the site plan, I think.
Right.
And so, but I don't want to boo-hoo it yet, because I do want a complete understanding at this point rather than as we go through it. So does anybody have any other things that they, yes, Mrs. Smith?
I just had one question. The 4-story buildings, do they have elevators?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? And with that, maybe it's time for Mrs. Stanton to go on to item number 6, which I actually have already introduced. And thanks for that explanation. I think that's going to help on this.
Thank you again, Chairman and board members. See, item number 6. My presentation has gotten much shorter. Thank you, Mr. Mealy. It wasn't very long to begin with, but he covered a great majority of information on the PCD, City Center PCD amendment that I was going to cover. I just wanted to point out that this is the first time that the City Center PCD will be modified. It was approved via ordinance in 2002, via ordinance 2002-68 under the old zoning code. The current zoning code was adopted in 2013, and so under the new zoning code, it is under the new zoning code that this PCD will be upgraded and reflect the current requirements for a PCD under the new code. As a matter of fact, Mr. Mealy also covered just about everything on my slides. So I want to jump to the fact that the conditions for approval of a modified PCD are consistency with the comprehensive plan and the intent of a PCD, both of which focus on promoting mixed-use development. Conversion of the city center to a mixed-use development, therefore, is consistent with both the comprehensive plan goals, objectives, and policies, and the intent of a PCD. Staff does suggest the following motions, which may be modified at the board's discretion. Alternative motion 1, recommend approval of the modified PCD rezoning request as the board finds that rezoning application is consistent with the pertinent future land use goals, objectives, and policies, and the purpose of the planned commercial development district, or PCD district. Or alternative motion 2, table this application for additional information as requested by the board. Staff does recommend alternative motion 1.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of staff specifically about this?
And put my presentation up if you, thank you.
Sorry, were you, Mr. Saunders?
I'll wait for the board's comments, you know.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions of staff? on this particular item now. Okay, Mr. Saunders, did you want to?
I only want to make sure that the board, when we start talking about conditions, some of the conditions would be apropos for certain applications. For example, and I think Mr. Mealy alluded to it when he talked about what has been discussed robustly, the perimeter road. That perimeter road, I believe, lies not on the site, the project site, but lies somewhat either on the shopping center parcel, and so as a part of your PCD amendment, that perimeter road, its configuration, the various conditions that you have suggested should be a part of the PCD amendment, because when you get to rezoning and the site plan, those items are site-specific.
Mr. Mealy, go ahead.
So again, Dennis Mealy on behalf of the applicant. So I would say that the landscape islands that we're adding on the commercial piece outside of the site plan, that would probably be for this PCD item, because that's where they'll be. The crosswalk actually goes from the residential to the shopping center, so you might want to put the crosswalk in both the site plan and in the PCD. And then the additional wheel stops and wayfinding signage that we talked about would probably be most appropriately in the PCD, because that's where they'll be. Is that, Mr. Saunders, is that okay?
And you're agreeing to,
And we're agreeing to all those.
okay.
Microphone.
That also includes the configuration that you have presented tonight of that perimeter road.
That's correct.
Where it lies and its turns.
Okay,
That's correct.
okay, so, okay, good. I realize why you did that, too, so. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions? Applicant, excuse me, for the staff, and if not, the applicant, you're done with, are you done now that on this particular issue until we get to site plan? Okay. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and then bring it back to the board. Are there any last minute things, or are we ready for a motion on item number 6?
I can try.
Please.
And I was just going to say, to recap.
You want a recap of the things that are going to be
I just want
added
to make sure,
in?
because I wrote them down too, but would it be, we're looking at 4 different things. Okay. I'll work with you if we get to that.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of the modified PCB rezoning request as the board finds that rezoning application is, am I on the right item here?
Yes.
Yeah, consistent with the pertinent future land use goals, objectives, and policies, and the purpose of the planned commercial development PCD district purposes, with 4 conditions. First condition, installation of the landscape islands shown on,
Somebody give us a sheet number.
yeah. That's okay, that's okay, we want to get this right the first time.
Yeah. That, whatever page that is.
18?
It says 18 in our screen. Can you
Okay.
see that?
18 of the site plan application,
I think it's actually the presentation.
of the presentation. Applicant's presentation, shown on page 18 of the applicant's presentation. Condition 2, installation of the crosswalk shown on page 19 of the applicant's presentation. In number 3, installation of wayfinding signage along the new perimeter driveway as outlined in the applicant's presentation. And 4, additional wheel stops installed on one aisle on the southeast side of the site as described in the applicant's presentation.
Preferably the second aisle, the second set of aisles, double aisles.
Middle aisle.
Yeah, the second one, not the one that's next to Les, but the next one, because that'll stop people from going across. If you're,
Yeah, that's
it's your
fine.
motion, so I probably shouldn't.
I'm
walk
very
it.
happy with your,
Okay.
your suggestion, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
That is the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We okay with that, you think? Okay. Do we have any questions on the motion?
Good job.
Thank you, David.
Okay. And with that, Bobby, call the roll on item number 6, please.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes. Okay, item number 7, Pompano City Center rezoning, P&Z 21-13508, and same address, 1600 Northeast 23rd Avenue. And this is Danton. I think, yeah, we're back on normal time here, I think.
Do I need to introduce myself?
Is there anything you?
Still Pamela Stanton. Oh, by the way, I'm filling in for Jean Dolan, who is on vacation for the last item and for this item. This is the City Center residential rezoning. I don't have a slide presentation for this one. It's basically one slide, and if it's okay with you, I'll just leave up this site plan as I go through the criteria and the staff's findings on the rezoning application. And much of this was already covered by Mr. Mealy. I'm repeating it, but I'll try to do it quickly. The applicant is requesting to rezone 12.1 acre parcel at the rear of the mall, previously located at the location of the Macy's and parking field. And the rezoning is from B3 PCD to RM30. The land use designation on this parcel was changed from commercial to an irregular residential density of 29.5 units per acre in 2021. The land use designation allows for a maximum of 356 units. The requested rezoning to RM30 will bring the zoning district into compliance with the land use category, and the site will continue to be limited to the maximum 356 units per the land use designation. The site plan submitted for the property is for 352 units, which complies with the land use designation and the new RM30 zoning, or proposed RM30 zoning district. As a criteria for the rezoning, the applicant must provide competent substantial evidence that the proposed amendment is consistent with the future land use category and any applicable goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan and all applicable city adopted plans. And there are 10 policies from the comprehensive plan that are provided in the staff report that are relative to this zoning request. And these policies generally require that the rezoning is consistent with the land use designation, compatibility with adjacent properties, and adequate public facilities capacity to accommodate the demands of the project. And it's staff's conclusion that the RM30 rezoning is in conformance with the irregular density 29.5 dwelling units an acre land use designation, and the RM30 zoning designation would be the most logical zoning district for the site. The RM30 zoning district is compatible with the adjacent land uses. Staff finds that there is substantial evidence to support this request. The department recommendation, given the information provided to the board as the finder of fact, the Development Services Department provides the following recommendation and alternative motions, which may be revised or modified at the board's discretion. Alternative motion 1. Recommend approval of the rezoning request as the board finds the rezoning application is consistent with the pertinent future land use goals and policies. Or alternative motion 2. Table this application for additional information as requested by the board. Staff recommends alternative motion 1.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this particular item specifically? Mr. Mealy, did you have anything else you wanted to say on this item?
Not unless you have any questions.
Okay. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board, and with that, the chair will entertain a motion on item number 7.
I have a motion.
Yes, Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
I'd move that the board find there's competent, substantial evidence has been presented for the rezoning, along with the goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan and existing adjacent land uses, and recommend approval of the item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Bobby, call the roll on item number 7, please.
Did Mrs. King second that motion?
Yes.
Sorry, yes, it was Mrs. King.
Derek Lewis?
Yes.
Tundra King?
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz?
Yes.
Darlene Smith?
Yes.
Carla Coleman?
Yes.
Fred Stacer?
Yes, okay. Now, item number 8, Pompano City Center Residential Site Plan, P&Z 21-124042. Project location 1190 to 1200 East Copans Road. Mrs. Stanton, go ahead.
Thank you. I had a beautiful presentation, but can't compete with this one, so I'll put this up again. And everything that was in my presentation has been covered, if you want to hear it again. Thank you. Thank you. This is the last of the 3 items for the city center. It's the city center residential major site plan. The project was reviewed by the Development Review Committee 3 times last year and in March of this year, and then received building design approval in May of this year from the Architectural Appearance Committee. With that, I'll jump ahead. Should the board find that the application has provided competent substantial evidence to satisfy the review standards for major site plan approval, the Development Services Department recommends including the following conditions. 1, the applicant must successfully obtain approval of the rezoning of the project parcel and the amendment of the city center PCD. 2, provide a copy of the final plat note amendment or revised plat to add residential entitlements. 3, show the locations of the electrical vehicle charging stations and conduit for future EV charging stations on the plans. 4, provide evidence of owner acceptance of the plant material for the proposed landscaping on the adjacent golf course property and define the maintenance responsibility for landscaping. 5, provide evidence of easement allowing cross-access to and from properties served by the vehicular cross-access along with the agreements defining maintenance responsibilities of property owners recorded with the Broward County Records Division. 6, provide evidence that the affordable housing conditions at the moderate level was satisfied. 7, provide evidence of approval from the pertinent agencies to permit off-site drainage and from the city center shopping center owners to allow the residential development drainage improvements on the shopping center property. 8, last, standard conditions of approval and/or specifications required to building permit, zoning compliance permit issuance. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Saunders, did we have, before we do this, do we have the ones that we just mentioned, any of those that you think should be tied into this site plan?
Yeah, I was going to ask, and I think Mr. Mealy mentioned some of those. I think we talked about the crosswalk.
It should be, for sure, because part of it goes onto your property.
And then also, I was not sure if some of the language that was already mentioned as conditions included the landscaping, not on the golf course side, but I thought there was landscaping as well along the perimeter road on your...
Again, Dennis Mealy on behalf of the applicant. That landscaping's already in the plan, so I don't know that you need a specific condition for it.
Oh, again, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was the case. I just...
Understood.
Okay, so I think that was the only item we needed to add. I think the other stuff is actually on to Sterling's property, correct?
I think so too, yes.
Okay, everybody good with that?
So we're adding a new condition 8,
9.
or well, 9, before the general conditions that deals with the same condition.
Oh, I've seen
The
what you're
first one, on the crosswalk.
It's on page 19 of the applicant's presentation.
Okay. The same language we used in the first, we can add to this one,
I think so.
so that they're the same language.
I believe so. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when the, as it relates to, I'm just trying to think of the number of the cars that might be on your property. I'm just guessing maybe 2 parking spaces, it's 350-something units. So when they leave your property, this is only an assumption. So a person's leaving your property and they want to go out onto Copens Road. So I'm just trying to see how those cars are gonna stack with the perimeter road going through behind the Wendy's. Like, how many cars are you gonna be able to stack through there? And I'm only saying that because Wendy's is a business as well, and I'm saying it for 2 reasons. That Wendy's is a business and we don't want to block those people. I know there was a problem at the Chick-fil-A once before, blocking other businesses. We don't want to block their business, as well as just north of this property is a residential area. And you wake up one morning and now you see 800 cars trying to get out at Copens Road. So have we made contact with those residents, and how could those cars be stacked back to be able to get out to wait to get on Copens Road? Other than, I guess they could cut through the plaza to go wait maybe up by J. Mark's, I think there's an entrance, and then down by the Wingstop or the new hamburger place, there's an entrance. I guess they could go to those other entrances, but I'm probably thinking a lot of people would come out on the Copens Road traffic light there.
Yes.
Yes, I see it now, right.
So that's the driveway going into and out of the residential, that little gray area. So if they wanted to go to the route that Ms. King was describing, they would come out here and then go this way. Or they could come out here and go this way. Or, they could even go through the center if they wanted to go out on the Federal or go to one of those other 2 Copens Road driveways. But I would think most often they would either go here if they were going westbound, and they go here if they were going eastbound.
Well, not necessarily. They might come all the way down this new roadway we created.
Past Lowe's.
Past Lowe's and go south on Federal.
Yeah,
Right,
if they're
I was
going
saying that
south
too.
on
If they wanted to
Federal,
go to
if they're going
Federal,
north
they
on
would do
Federal, they'd probably go.
I'm just thinking about, everybody's always complaining about traffic, and that's the major complaint I hear since I got on the board. Everybody tells me about traffic. So I'm just thinking in the early morning rush hour traffic, it just doesn't seem like a lot of space to be able to wait. I've never seen an influx of cars over there like that. Remember, it's vacant, so I'm just thinking in the mornings during traffic hour, like, how is that going to look? It's easy to look on here and go, yeah, they can go that way and that way, but
But there's a light by J. Mark's. There's a light by J. Mark's.
by Wingstop, there's no light. No light by Wingstop, but J Mart, yes.
There's a light by J. Mark's, there's a light at 18th, and then there's
One
down at
further
18th.
east.
And then there's also a light when they come out onto Copens. That is multiple ways to keep from backing up. And that's a whole lot more options than most of the developments we look at. I think
I'm just saying
gonna
it's
be a much
right
more
up on
active
top of businesses, so like, in the morning, probably most of those businesses don't get a lot of breakfast traffic. I don't know, isn't there IHOP there?
The IHOP gets a
Other
lot,
businesses.
Wendy's gets a lot, and Lowe's gets a lot of early morning traffic. So you've got a lot, because it opens at 6 or 7. So there's a lot of, but there's a lot, it's an active center, but there's just multiple.
Which is why I'm asking the question, because it's an active center that it's, I just hope we've done a good job of being neighborly to let the residents there, obviously will know about your project soon. And it's just, it seems compacted to me for a lot of cars inside that space to be able to get out. And then when you get out, you're like right on top of all these other businesses that want business as well.
So I think that we have a couple of things going for us. The first thing is that there's a lot of driveways going in and out of this property on Federal, on Copens. Secondly, and I think it was mentioned earlier by one of the board members, our people are going to be going out in the morning. And so the folks coming for breakfast at the places are coming in and out, but a lot of the other stores early in the morning don't have very much activity. So restaurants that serve breakfast would, Lowe's would, but a lot of the others probably wouldn't have a lot of early morning activity. And now coming back in the afternoon, and it's rush hour, you're going to have cars going both ways, in and out. But again, we worked closely with your engineering people, your traffic people, and we had to get the signatures of all the other owners in the plaza, so at least they felt comfortable enough to sign off on it.
And the residents as well? Have we sent out something to their,
You don't have residents yet.
well, you come to Copens Road, that whole area is residential.
On
We
Crest
did
Haven.
have meetings early on with,
Crest Haven?
yes, and the biggest thing we heard was, make sure you preserve our cut too. Said we
Yeah.
will.
It's a new word, cut to.
Well, I actually, looking at this, and unfortunately, when I was in graduate school, I studied queuing theory, and that was really mind-boggling, but I won't go into that. I don't know why anybody go to be a traffic engineer. That's insane. But anyway, I think the real problem, because you have multiple, what they call multiple servers, meaning you have multiple ways to get out, the problem that I could see here would be more internal. Like, they may bottleneck, if they bottleneck because the sixth car coming out of the apartment complex wants to go onto that left-hand turn to Copens, he's going to back up the traffic behind him inside of their development, because he might be waiting for that next stoplight, and then off he runs. I don't think it's going to do much for the shopping center. I bet you it would be more problems internally, and what'll happen is you might find people going to the second queuing or what they call serving point, which would be the next stoplight to the east, you know, to go over by J. Marks, and then you get in that line, because that line will be much shorter. If somebody's going to go west, it's not logical to go to J. Marks unless you see the queue is long at that stoplight at Copens on by the Wendy's, and then they'll probably automatically just drive over there, because they'll figure it out. I mean, after they get stopped, you know, 4 or 5 times in the morning, they're going to start going another way. But I don't think, to my point, I don't think it's going to hurt the shopping center. If it hurts anybody potentially until people figure it out internally, it'll be the 200 cars that leave sometime in a 1-hour period between 7 and 8 in the morning. That's internally within the apartment complex. You might have that problem, but anyway. The actual load going on to Copens is not really going to be a problem, but you're going to have to deal with it at your plat node, right? So they're going to take whatever bite out of you that they want at that point. Or tell you, yes, we do need to have traffic engineering look at it and retime the light at 7:30 in the morning or something.
Because we're doing a plat note amendment, the county engineering department, traffic engineering department will have a chance to review it and make any recommendations that they feel are appropriate. And, you know, we're ready for that.
Okay.
Did we find a new training spot for BSO? Did we find a new training spot for BSO?
Yeah, the 17th fairway. Okay. Anybody else have any other comments? And if not, we don't have a motion yet, and I think we're up to 9 conditions, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've already agreed to them, right, Mr. Mealy? That's correct. Yeah, okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mrs. Coleman.
This is the easy one. I'd like to make a motion, the board finds that competent and substantial evidence has been presented satisfying the review standards for the site plan approval, residential site plan approval, as requested in this application, and therefore I move approval of this item with the 9 conditions as amended outlined in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Bobby, call the roll on item number 8, please.
Arla Coleman,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Tundra King,
Yes.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
Yes, okay. Thanks a lot. Good luck.
We look forward to a wonderful development.
I'll be riding my bike around that air park and watching it go up. Okay. Moving on to audience to be heard, which looks like we probably don't have anybody because everybody left. So I think we can move on to staff reports. Staff report, 0? No staff report? Bobby?
Just happy to be back.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, Mr. Saunders, anything? No, sir. Mr. Clausewitz? Oh, thank you.
Well done.
Mrs. Coleman, I know you have some good news for us.
Yes, I know
Or
that.
good news for you, you're done.
I know that everybody has some place to be, so I'm going to be very, very brief tonight. I'll hand these out. I think Bobby sent everyone copies in your emails yesterday. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, the multimodal transportation task force under the EDC finished its work and disbanded, I'm happy to say, as chair. We are issuing our final report. The chair of the EDC asked that I bring that report to you tonight. This was the draft report we discussed this afternoon. There was a couple of Scribner's errors and one line on sustainability in transportation added to this report, and asking that Kimley Horn take a look at the stormwater plans and make sure that they're copacetic with the transportation plans on sustainability issues. I've been asked to present this report Monday at the EDC meeting, and we hope to take it to the commission probably in October because their September agendas are so full at this point. And there are a number of items that we will be asking both Kimley Horn to include in their transportation plan. I won't go over too many of those. They're outlined here, but they're very significant. And they focus on really making Kimley Horn not just crunch numbers, but look at policies, look at places where other people have been able to solve some of the issues we're planning on now, to suggest strategies with them. But there's the second part of the recommendations ask that several things from the city, including setting up a more permanent group to deal with this, either under EDC or elsewhere, and identifying a central point of contact for multimodal issues within city staff. There's no place now where residents can come and get information. There's no place in our website. We need better communication pathways with residents and businesses and more transparency. We're going to ask for some changes there. And special emphasis on communication with the biking community. And that biking community is not just recreation, it's also the aspect for our children going to school, and it is, there are a number of people in Pompano Beach who rely on bikes as their main mode of transportation, and it's just not safe right now. Overarching recommendation is going to be geared towards safety here. And I'll let you read it for yourself, but it was a wonderful experience with looking at how we could do this better and integrate it. And I'm going to give the chairman a lot of credit here, because our chairman, because we have been talking about how to better integrate these kinds of decisions into our decisions we make before this board. How do we set up a structure where that works better? And so we're getting some good input put into the very first transportation plan for Pompano Beach. And we included a plank asking for more focus and higher funding priority for enhanced maintenance. We seem to do things and then expect them not to need maintenance afterwards. It's everything from striping on traffic calming issues to a developer will tear up the road for the bike path, where the bike path is in. When they put it back together, it's rideable for the biker. So lots of good suggestions that are actually implementable, and that's what we're looking for here. We had some citizens on the committee who said, please don't let this all be 10 years in the future. We need to see some movement now. So I'd like kind of a blessing from this group as we go forward, if you feel you can give it.
Okay. Anybody have any comments? Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
Ms. Smith, go ahead.
One of the things that I liked that you put in there is to work with the cities that connect to us, so that if they have something going in the plans, we can tag on to their plans. I love that you guys pulled that in, and I think that's important.
Well, actually, our attorney came to the meeting today as just an observer because of the issues the city has been having with the FEC. And I remember many years ago, there was something known as the State Road 7 Collaborative. All the cities that were along State Road 7 got together to try to do some improvements with one voice. And there was talk today of suggesting that we do basically the same thing for the cities along the FEC to see if we can't get some movement on issues there. But yes, there's got to be better ways to prove this, and we don't always have to create it out of whole cloth. How are other communities dealing with this? And we'd like Kimley Horn to give us some suggestions.
Very nice.
Mrs. King?
Yes, I'd definitely like this to be added in the budget. My school is right off 31st Avenue, and my students can ride right from Collier City, and their parents want them to ride, but they're afraid. So now we have to try to, bust them or drive them right across, because I don't want them going on 31st. And so I enjoyed reading everything, and I hope that the city can allocate funding for us to make these changes and for us to be consistent to continue with the infrastructure of keeping everything maintained. And I love to see my students being able to ride safely down 31st Avenue. There's other schools there as well. So thank you, Ms. Coleman.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the focus on maintenance, because a lot of what I do for a living deals with things that become defective after time, and it's not just important to build something correctly, it's important to maintain it correctly. So I appreciate that.
Okay, if everybody else is done, I have 2 or 3 things on that. So one is that you brought up something, Mrs. King, that when we do get to the funding for 31st Avenue, then maybe we need to be very concerned, or that would be the time for sure to have input where maybe on the south end of Collier City, close to where the shopping center is on the other side, and or if there ends up being sidewalks on that side, that we have someplace where we can cross. It would be a good idea to have a cross situation like we do at, like, say, MLK, where we had the traffic problem before, right? So I want you to stay on top of that in case, when you see that funding for 31st, we need to jump on that and make sure that we get that done. I think that's a good idea. Mrs. Coleman, I dearly appreciate the fact that you did this, because you know what would have happened if you hadn't. I would have had to do it. So I appreciate the fact that Mrs. Coleman did this, and I appreciate the fact that Mrs. Smith did 31st Avenue. And I'm telling you, delegation's a great thing. What can I say? Anyway, no, but you did a great job. I had feedback from members of this committee, and as I would not have expected anything less, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yes, I do want to. I had 2 things I wanted to add in. One, you brought this up about a little bit on FEC. Not that the short term or the task force needs to, but when we do the extension of the transportation modeling, I think we need to make sure we put the rail on that list, because I noticed we didn't have the rail. So 20 or 30 years from now, we're going to have a crossover rail.
Yeah.
Probably when I go in the ground sometime, but
No,
whatever. But hopefully it's before. Maybe I'll see it before then. Who knows?
I think I tried to put rail in, and Kimley Horn went crazy, I think.
Well,
at
good
that
for them.
point.
Good for them. Hold their next check. Let them talk to me. Okay. The other thing that I think might be something that we want to throw out there, and I kind of picked this up when we did Live Resort this last section, when we talked about instead of doing, they decided to do the hub, right? So it might be, and I think this is especially going to be relevant because when we do the downtown area, I think we're going to need to be thinking about a hub in that area too, right? Because these hubs are what's going to make it possible to use all the forms of transportation, especially through the high transportation zones like a Live Resort or our new downtown. So I think that's one thing that when it extends, I think that, into the next level.
There's going to be plenty of work for the permanent group to do.
Oh, I'm not, yeah.
I know,
Believe me,
I know.
I'm not saying,
I know,
before meetings,
but it is, it's amazing how much more we could have put in here. We were afraid the main points would get lost in the shuffle.
Sure, and I'm not saying that you should.
Oh, I know, but I mean, I want to make a note of that so we don't forget that.
Yeah,
for the
because I
permanent
think
group.
hubs are gonna, I actually think after we decided that hub in Live Resort, the more I thought about it, I thought, man, this makes a lot of sense, We have transportation, we're gonna have transportation hubs that are not hubs until you make a hub out of it, but the point is they're going to be gathering points. The beach is a gathering point right now, right, where we've done all this development. You're going to have the new downtown that's going to start developing, and it's going to be a major hub. I mean, it's going to be not just the city hub, potentially much more complex, and over time, it might include rail hub, which would be just really amazing. But I think that that's one of those things that we really, that we, like you said, just don't lose track of it, for sure. But I do appreciate the fact that you worked hard on it and whatever, so.
Well, I will tell you that the group, the permanent group is, the chairman of EDC is already looking for a permanent chairman, so if anybody would like another job.
You're ready to pass it on, huh?
Yes, he's not ready to let me pass it on,
Denominator.
but.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay. Did you have any other items?
No, sir.
Okay. Mrs. Smith, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do not.
Okay. Mrs. King, did you have anything?
None for me, thank you.
You're good? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think Ms. Coleman asked if, and I haven't heard it.
That's true.
And that the board is overwhelmingly supporting.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Okay, let's do that.
In the form of a motion?
Yeah, you want to make a motion then, or?
I'd like
Or do
to,
you think we should, somebody
you
else?
should make the motion.
Okay.
I would-
Mrs. Smith, you want to make a motion?
I'm not sure how to word this, but I would like to make a motion of the endorsement by the Planning and Zoning Board of the, what's the actual title?
Multimodal Task Force.
Multimodal Task Force Report.
Second.
Okay.
Try to say that multimodal fast 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
And work.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Okay, hearing none, call the roll on this new,
Darlene Smith,
Yes.
Richard Kloskowitz,
Yes.
Andrew King,
Yes.
Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Carla Coleman,
Yes.
Fred Stacer.
yes, okay, great. I don't have anything tonight. I know you can't believe that.
Oh, my gosh.
Everybody get the defibrillators out.
Please.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, man,
I knew
do it.
that was coming.
Let's do it.
On behalf of the staff and the members of the board, I move we adjourn.
Okay, so moved.